and welcome to our last episode of Up All Night. She keeps putting her foot in my face. Hello, Night Owls, and welcome to another episode of Up All Night, the only show where boys feel so uninvolved that we had to make a boy episode. I'm Stacey.
And I'm Ari, and that's actually false. Tonight we're making a boy and a girl episode, because we're women. Actually, that has nothing to do with it. But tonight we're going to be talking about video games, specifically about the marketing of video games, and whether or not we think that video games are marketed mainly for boys, or mainly for girls, or mainly for both. Also an option. So I've decided that I think video games, the only difference between boys' games and girls' games is the option of free will. And I think that mainly in the games that we market towards girls are games where you have all free will, you can make all the choices that you want to. And in games that are marketed towards boys, we take away that free will and you're left with a left and a right. And sometimes not even a left and a right. Sometimes you only have one singular path. You have to beat the boss. To beat the boss, you have to do this, you have to do this. There's no left or no right. And I think that makes more sense. I think that also influences how the games are marketed then, because you have no options. They can only show you what you can do without giving away the story.
Okay. I mean, I think that's kind of weird in the Grand Theft Auto worlds, where yes, you do have an option to follow the game. However, you could also just hang around the city and steal cars and thoughts. You can steal a hose too. And also in a midnight club type of world where you can pick whichever race you want to pick throughout the whole city, whatever car you want to pick throughout the whole city, which amazing game. Shout out to my Harley Quinn guy. But yeah, so I don't know. But then again, like the game itself is not what the conversation is about. Because yes, I can advertise the game however I want to, and then when you play the game, you realize, oh wait, like my friend who's a girl, and my friend who's a guy would really like this. Like the argument is that when they marketed it towards
one or the other.
The gender that they wanted to focus on. Like they've done a lot of research into what are they watching, what do they like. How can we pull them in with this advertising? And that's what the problem is. Not that the game can be played by whoever. Yes, of course. Okay.
But I mean, I feel like that's not completely accurate, because that brings us back to the question of blue or pink. So market researchers said that for some reason boys like blue and girls like pink. And so then in your trailer you're saying that to advertise at times towards boys, you only use the blue color, and in a girl's game you only use the pink color. But if you use other colors, does that make it unisexual, or does that still push it from left to right, from girls to boys?
It pushes it to boys, because anything that's not pink is for a boy. Like that's, and it's not, and I'm not saying that color-wise, I think only pink is for girls and all colors are for boys. No. But I'm saying that when marketing happens, the way that they've decided, because the colors used to be switched, but that's not the point. Yeah. The point is that when marketers decide, okay, boys like blue smoke now. Boys like smoke now. Boys like darker things and more, just bold lines. And
so what if we come down to that's what they put in the thing because they think that their target audience is going to be boys. But what if it turns out that more females like how that game is portrayed and more females purchase it? Does that still make it marketed towards boys?
Yes, it's marketed towards boys regardless of who buys it. Because you can think of it like in our Monster High video. Yeah, their target market is 12-year-old girls, but the people who are buying it is 20-year-old women. But they don't care. Like when they re-upped it, they didn't care. So I think of it in the same way, whereas they think their target market is somebody. So regardless of who plays it and who loves it,
really matter.
Doesn't matter, because they've decided that we're going to sell the boys. And if anything, when girls start buying it, they're going to change it because that's not who we're selling it to, which is exactly what happened with the dolls.
It is, that's true. But I think this literally only applies to the first-person shooter games, because other games don't do that. Other games are set up to have, like you're saying, like the Midnight Club, to have a diversity of how the plot works, where you, in some options, you only have one choice, but the storyline's very complicated and you have free will and other things. And in other choices, you have all free will. And so they market the game to make sure that they can encompass people who like options. And marketing is about diversifying and showing and broadcasting all the options that you have. And I think that's perfectly exemplified by the game The Wolf Among Us. You don't really know if that game's for boys. You don't really know if that game's for girls because, yes, the character is the big bad wolf, but in the first 2 scenes they tell us all about fables, and normally you associate fables with fairy tales. Fairy tales in itself has a very feminine connotation to it. So I feel like we really only argue first-person shooter games, which I'm okay with. I don't like first-person shooter games anyway. They're not interesting. They don't have a great story to them. You got one task, kill somebody.
Okay. But then when I think of The Wolf Among Us, though, I think of how they are telling a different side of the fairy tale. So yes, it typically has a feminine connotation, but I think of it the same way I think of Grimm. And like my biggest example of that is Grimm versus Once Upon a Time. It's the same concept. The people we know from fairy tales are now in the real world, but they're telling it from 2 very different perspectives. And I'm not saying the Grimm is for men and Once Upon a Time is for women, but the once side of things is like the drama, the relationships. Here's how we do that, da. And Grimm is also like that, but their versions of the characters are so they're more grim. But anyway, they have like these really contorted faces, and like it's the way that they tell the story and not the fact that the story can be told to both audiences. It's that they're telling it differently. And I'm not saying that's like the same thing, but I'm saying that they're telling the same story. They're telling it differently though. So yes, you can say that fairy tales are associated with, women, but if they retell it and they're just like Hansel and Gretel, that movie, not the point. But yeah, so things can be retold to be re-geared to a different audience, is what I'm saying.
I suppose that's true. Yeah. But I guess it really doesn't matter what we think. It matters what the target audience thinks, and that's often not us. And I think what it really comes down to is you buy the games that you want to buy, you shop on the marketplaces that you want to shop, and ultimately the marketplaces where you shop are the marketplaces that they're trying to market to. So if you don't want to shop on the places where they only advertise first-person shooter games that are marketed mainly towards men, then shop on Steam where you get indie games and you have stuff with more options. You get all your free will. But I think that's all I got in me tonight.
Yeah.
But we want to know what you think. What do you think? So go ahead, comment down below. Comment.
Subscribe.
But that's all for me. So I'm going to go ahead and head to bed.
She's falling.